Some time ago, someone requested FlatOut, and I was like, okay, let's analyze FlatOut. But then I think to myself, I have a lot of things to say about every game in the FlatOut franchise. So I thought about something really cool. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FlatOut Marathon. Starting with the first FlatOut game, of course. FlatOut 1 is seen not only as one of the best racing games of 2004, it is also seen as one of the 4 racing titans of 2004, and it is also seen as one of the best racing games of all time. So in this video we are going to be answering the question, how good is FlatOut really? Hi everyone, as always Patrick here. If you're already subscribed, make sure you turn on notifications, otherwise YouTube won't tell you if I posted anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you watch until the very end and consider subscribing if you like it. Okay, here we go, starting the FlatOut Marathon with the first FlatOut game. The first FlatOut game was developed by Bugbear Entertainment and published by Empire Interactive, at least in Europe, in 2004. FlatOut is a racing game, obviously, where you race against your opponents, obviously, in old rusty cars that are somehow extremely durable. The main selling point of FlatOut is the physics, the amazing physics. But are they actually amazing? Well, yes they are. But I will talk about the physics way later in the video. For now, I want to talk about other stuff, like the graphics. I've heard a lot of people say that FlatOut is the best looking racing game of 2004, and I've gotta say that's an overstatement. Not a huge overstatement by any means. I mean, the game still looks good and I'm still impressed with the graphics to this day, but it's definitely not the best looking racing game of 2004. However, since this game is one of the 4 racing titans of 2004, I would say it can easily compete graphically with the other 3 racing titans of 2004. Just by looking at the footage, you can already tell that FlatOut is a pretty good looking game graphically for 2004. But does it look better than the other 3 racing titans of 2004? Well, I can't answer that question yet. First, we gotta compare the graphics of FlatOut to other racing games that also came out in 2004. In 2004, we also had games like Rally Run, the PC version of Colin McRae Rally 04, Half-Life Rally, which is a mod, so I don't know if it really counts, but I'm still gonna put it here since that mod did come out in 2004. Toka Race Driver 2, Racing Dynamics Plus, Trigger Rally, Colin McRae Rally 2005, Ford Racing 3, and Euro Rally Champion. Although you can see the footage from those games I've just mentioned, just by doing a quick Google search or a quick YouTube search, I guess, you can quickly tell that FlatOut looks way better than those games I've just mentioned. But what about the 3 racing titans of 2004? Well, those 3 racing titans, or should I say other 3 racing titans of 2004 are Richard Burns Rally, Burnout 3 Takedown, and Expand Rally. Does FlatOut look better than Richard Burns' Rally? Yeah, I would say so. Richard Burns' Rally is kinda brown and grey when you really think about it. Not to mention that Richard Burns' Rally also have some graphical issues on modern systems that you need to fix. And I know what you're thinking, yes, FlatOut also has some graphical issues on modern systems, but they are not that visible, plus fixing them is much easier. However, those issues aren't really noticeable in FlatOut, so that's why I think FlatOut looks better than Richard Burns' Rally. Does FlatOut look better than Burnout Free Takedown? I would say they are almost identical. It's very similar textures, very similar effects. Everything about those two games are similar in terms of graphics, at least. The only thing I can say is that I think Burnout Free Takedown has better particle effects, but that's about it. And finally, does FlatOut look better than Expand Rally? No. No, not even close. Expand Rally blows FlatOut out of the water when it comes to graphics. And gameplay. And story, despite the fact that both games don't have a story. Anything FlatOut can do, Expand Rally does better. Sorry FlatOut, you can't compete with Expand Rally, but you can compete with Burnout Free Takedown and Richard Burns' Rally, so that's something. But can FlatOut also compete with those games option-wise? I guess so. Let me break this down for you. The game does support widescreen resolutions with some big issues. There's anisotropic filtering, anti-aliasing, the frame rate is smooth, so that's cool. And there are also some other less important graphical options, and that's it. So what's the problem? Well, the game has, or the options have, some problems. First of all, the widescreen resolutions are stretched from the 4:3 aspect ratio, so you have to fix that. VSync is enabled by default, so you need to install a fan-made patch to fix that. The frame rate is capped at 100 FPS, and you also need to use a fan-made patch to fix that. Also, using this fan-made patch can slightly mess with the car engine sounds, but honestly I didn't really notice anything, so I guess the patch is stable enough. And of course, the biggest problem, there's no FOV slider. So I've mentioned something about a fan-made patch, right? Well, all of those issues I've just mentioned, or at least most of them, can be fixed with one simple fan-made patch, and that is the Zolika patch. The Zolika patch removes the forced VSync and the 100 FPS cap, fixes the zoomed in FOV, stretched HUD elements in widescreen resolutions and widescreen scaling. It also adds the option to skip intro videos and the 5-second wait on the copyright screen, and it also adds an option for borderless windowed mode. Installing the Zolika patch is very easy. All you have to do is drag and drop the file or the files into the installation folder, and there you go, the patch is installed. And now you can play the improved version of FlatOut. You can also use 13AG's fix to fix the stretched resolutions and improve the FOV, but the 13AG's fix doesn't fix the frame rate cap and the forced VSync issue, so if I had to choose, I would choose the Zolika patch any day of the week. So just stick with the Zolika patch. Yeah, that's my professional advice for the day. Also, what about the stability? Well, I was playing with the Zolika patch, so I didn't encounter any issues. No crashes, no lag, no frame drops, everything felt fine. I was also playing this game without the patch, and I also didn't encounter any issues with crashes, stutters, lag, frame drops. So, as far as the PC release goes, it's a solid PC release. Now, you do have to use the Zolika patch to fix the forced VSync and the frame rate cap, but other than that, it's a solid release. Okay, enough talking about the graphics. Now let's talk about the story. Wait a minute. I swear I've talked about the story before. Oh yeah, I did say that the game doesn't have a story. Usually I complain about this, but in this case, I'm actually glad that this game doesn't have a story. No, I'm serious. I mean, what would the story of FlatOut even be about? Actually, you know what? I can already imagine it. Actually, I don't have to imagine it because throughout this FlatOut marathon, I will also analyze one FlatOut-like game that has a story. So when I get to that game, you will find out why I'm happy that FlatOut doesn't have a story. And since I don't have to talk about the story, now I can talk about the gameplay. And I have a lot to say about the gameplay. I'll try to keep it short though, since my videos are way too long. So let's start with the damage model. The damage model in FlatOut is wonderful. It still holds up to this day, and I would argue that it's on par with Burnout Free Takedown. The car damage always looks different. It depends on what way you crashed your car. If you crash into something or someone at very high speeds, the driver will fly through the windshield. And this gameplay element defines the entire series. Every car in the game has location-based damage. So, for example, if someone hits you in the back of your car in the right side, only the right side of your car will be damaged, and so on. Every time I crash my car into something, I always want to see how bad the damage can get. And let me tell you, your car can turn into a one big piece of junk. Your car will get dents and scratches, parts can come off, the car engine can smoke, and you can even set your car engine on fire. But do you know what's the funniest thing about this? This is one of those games where your car is on fire 99% of the time and the car behaves like a brand new car. Now let's talk about the physics. Just like the damage model, the physics in FlatOut are wonderful. Every time I drive in this game, I feel like I'm driving an actual car. Think of your car as a one giant physics object. Every time you accelerate, every time you turn, every time you drift, everything about your car is affected by the physics. The physics get even better and more impressive when you hit other props, other objects, or even your opponents. Since your car affects the physics of the props, objects, and your opponents, those props, objects, and even opponents, or should I say especially opponents, affects the physics of your car. it feels amazing. I should also mention that there is no car auto balance in this game, which means that if you try hard enough, you can get some excellent rollovers and flips. Now let's talk about the handling. The handling of FlatOut is something that I can both praise and criticize, but mostly praise, and there's a lot to praise. The cars are heavy, the cars have good downforce, the cars are planted to the ground, and most importantly, every time you turn, you can feel the car's weight. You can also use the weight of your car to throw your car around the corners. Combining those things creates a very fun, interesting and engaging handling model. I do have some issues with the handling though, but I will talk about those issues later. Now let's talk about the cars. At this point in the video, we all know everything we need to know about the car handling. But what about the theme and the aesthetic of those cars? Well, Bugbear thought that cars from the junkyard are fun to drive. And I guess they were onto something, because the cars are actually fun to drive, despite the fact that those cars are literally from the junkyard. I'm actually surprised that those pieces of junk are durable. I mean, you can set them on fire and they still behave like a brand new car. I guess they are durable because they are meant to be crashed. I mean, FlatOut is about demolition derby style racing after all. I mean, the game has demolition derby arenas and demolition derby styled races. And that's the theme Bugbear was going for. Oh yeah, one more thing about the cars. So as you all know, in this game you drive cars from the junkyard. But I should also mention that there are small cars, big cars, short cars, long cars, and they all feel different from each other. So that's cool. And that's all I have to say about the cars themselves. Let's talk about the tracks and the tracks design. If I had to describe the tracks and the track design in one word, I would choose the word tight. Now, FlatOut is an arcade racer, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that tight track design in an arcade racer is a bad thing, but that's not actually the case. In fact, tight track design is actually a good thing in this game. Every track in FlatOut 1 has turns. Lots of turns. There are moments where those tracks have straights, but they are not long straights. They are actually short straights. Very short straights. The tracks are also narrow. This means that there's not much space you can use. If you want to overtake someone, you have to find a really good spot to overtake them. To make things even better, there are a lot of obstacles on the road. And by obstacles, I mean objects and props you can hit. Usually those objects and props are on the side of the road, not in the center. So sometimes you have to go to the side of the road just so you can hit those objects and props. Almost every object and prop on the track can be destroyed or broken, and smashing into those objects or props earns you boost, or in this case, nitro. The nitro is, well, a nitro. If you've played any racing game that has a nitro mechanic or a boost mechanic or whatever, you know how this works. However, I should mention that in this game I actually found nitro more useful for fast cornering. And the nitro in this game is also pretty strong, so you can overtake your opponents with the nitro without any problems. You can also gain nitro by hitting opponents, so if you're about to run out of nitro, just find an opponent on your way, hit them, and you'll get some of your nitro back. But okay, I'm getting off track, no pun intended. So now, let's get back on track. Again, no pun intended. In FlatOut 1, you can race on many different surfaces, like tarmac, dirt, snow, and even ice. My favorite courses in this game are the snowy courses, because the surface you race on affects the handling, so you have to quickly get used to the new surface, because if you don't, you will lose. I forgot to mention that the damage also affects the handling. However, the difference isn't all that noticeable. The only thing I've noticed is that the car leans towards one side. If you damage the right side of your car, the car will lean towards the right side. If you damage the left side of your car, the car will lean towards the left side. But when you combine the damage model with the surface you're racing on, the difference is very noticeable. For example, when you are racing on the snow or on ice and your car is damaged, well, you will just spin out all the time. Just keep that in mind. The tracks have a lot of tight turns, as I've mentioned earlier, and those turns make the game harder and require you to brake often, especially in higher classes and higher tier cars. The tracks also have height differences, which make them unpredictable and intense. Also, speeding too much on those tracks will make you pay, making the game somewhat realistic. The tracks also have shortcuts, and you can use them to your advantage if you know how to use them. Now let's talk about the gameplay loop. Starting out, you buy yourself a car and then progress ahead, and then you make money. How do you make money? By winning races, tournaments, demolition derbies, and minigames. You can also make extra money by smashing into objects and props. The more objects and props you smash, the more money you get. You can use the money you've earned to upgrade components of your car, or if you really need it, you can use the money to buy a better car. Now I believe that I've said everything that needed to be said about the game. However, now it's time to talk about something I actually don't want to talk about: the bad qualities of FlatOut 1. Thankfully, this section will be pretty short. First bad quality: the nitro is actually kinda hard to get. Now, like I've said before, you can get nitro by smashing into objects, props, and opponents, and they do give you some nitro, but once you hit an object or a prop, you cannot hit it again. So you have to look for a new object or for a new prop. Or you just have to get lucky and find an opponent and just keep hitting him. To make things worse, everything is physics based, which means that anything, or should I say hitting anything, can slow you down. So the game encourages you to hit objects, props, and opponents, but at the same time the game discourages you from doing this. So what is it, Bugbear? To make things even worse, hitting objects and even hitting tiny props like traffic cones can mess you up. And by mess you up, I mean you will spin out even though you really shouldn't spin out. And you have no idea how many races I've lost because of this. It's ridiculous. I don't like it. Second bad quality. The minigames are not the best. Hear me out, the minigames are great and downright hilarious due to the ridiculous ragdoll physics. Here's the problem. Sometimes those minigames just don't work. Demolition races work as intended, thankfully, but the demolition derbies have sensitive collision detection. I'm telling you, you're actually better off not hitting anyone because for some reason you take more damage than your opponent does. How does that work? To make things worse, sometimes even the minigames like high jump and long jump don't work as intended. Sometimes you just can't get airtime, like at all, during the high jump. Like you eject the driver and the driver just doesn't fly at all. And this also applies to other mini-games. Third bad quality, jerky handling. Now hear me out, like I've said before, the handling is great because the cars are heavy, you can feel the weight and other stuff I've mentioned previously. So what's the problem? The problem is the fact that the game likes to spin you out even when you really shouldn't spin out. I don't know why this is happening, but it happened to me many times before. It gets worse once you keep wrecking your car due to the physics or the broken physics mentioned before, or just the physics mentioned before, whatever. I'm just gonna say this. If you are very bad at driving in this game, get ready to restart the race. A lot. And the final bad quality, the game really needed more cars. FlatOut 1 has a total of only 15 cars. I also have two nitpicks. 1. The sound effects are pretty good, but some of them are pretty low quality. And 2. The soundtrack is pretty nice, but a lot of the songs are forgettable. Okay, now we can finally answer the question. How good is FlatOut really? It's very good. Great graphics, no story, and most importantly, frantic and fun gameplay. What more can you possibly ask for? Now don't get me wrong, FlatOut 1 does have bad qualities, but those bad qualities don't ruin the experience for me. I'm not saying that FlatOut 1 is a must play, but the least you can do is check out the game. Who knows, maybe this game will make you fall in love with the series. I would say that we started off the marathon pretty strong. Next up, we are going to be analyzing FlatOut 2. The entire FlatOut fanbase says that FlatOut 2 is the best game in the franchise. Is it actually the best game in the franchise? I can't tell right now. Only time will tell. But that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to say in this analysis video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Just me.